farming, fishing, foraging, mining, combat. These are the 5 skills that live in harmony in the valley. Only the farmer, master of all 5 skills, can bring economic stability to Pelican Town. I've looked forward to talking about the most important part of the game for a while now. Fishing. If I'm honest with y'all, I'd say that this is one of the most important skills of the game, second only to farming. Not only is it a great source of income, but it has its little fishy tendrils spreading out to other parts of the game that you would think are normally separated from fishing. Alas, we all came from the water, and eventually we'll all return to it. Let's start talking about those fishing mechanics. So, you'll get your fishing rod on day 2 after you've gotten the letter from Willie to come meet him. Upon first using your fishing rod, you'll have a little minigame. This determines how far you'll cast the bobber. The more full the bar is, the farther you'll cast the line. If you have a nearly full bar, you'll get a little perfect note. This, contrary to popular belief, means nothing. What actually matters is where your bobber lands. Every square of water has a depth number. This number is based on how many tiles away from land the square is. So your zones will look something like this. Notice it starts at 0, there is no zone 4, you go straight from 3 to 5. A higher zone has many benefits, such as a lower chance to catch trash, higher quality fish on average, a higher chance to catch more difficult fish, different items from treasure chests, and some fish just straight up cannot be caught in lower fishing zones. In addition, if you ever see these bubbles, casting in them will increase the zone of that spot by 1, as well as quadrupling the fish bite speed. Also, if you need to, you can slightly adjust the spot that your bobber lands by holding down a direction during the cast. Alright, so we cast the bobber. Now for minigame 2, we wait for an exclamation point to appear above our head. Just press the use button if you see it. If you caught a fish, say hello to minigame number 3. Here you simply need to follow the little fish icon with your fishing bar. Pressing the A button makes it go up, and it falls down on its own. Unless you're in multiplayer, time will be paused during this section, so don't feel rush. Simple, easy, the most despised part of the game. The thing is, each time you level up, your bar in this minigame gets larger, alongside other buffs that you'll obtain as you progress through the game. So you're getting the hardest fishing minigames right at the beginning. If you think it's hard, yeah, it is. Best advice I can give, stick to easier fish to start, and buy the training rod if you really think you need it. It's available in Willie's shop right at the beginning, and it'll increase the size of the bar to as if you were level 5. Also, if you keep the bar on the fish for the entire time, you'll get a perfect catch, which increases the quality of the fish by 1 stage. This is one of the 2 ways to catch an iridium quality fish, as they'll never be caught naturally. Speaking of, as your fishing level goes up, you'll naturally start to catch higher quality fish, just like how foraging and farming levels work with quality. During this fishing minigame, there's a small chance that a treasure chest icon will pop up. This has its own little catch bar, although remember that the fish's bar will still decrease while you go for the chest. It's a little bit of risk and reward. If you don't catch the fish, you don't get the chest. There is a smorgasbord of items that you could possibly get from this. Just like fish, many of the items you can fish up in chests have their own little requirements to get. The most common items you'll fish up in order is bait, various resources like coal or ore, and if you're in spring, rice shoots. Some of the rarer items are a whole collections of artifacts for the museum, geodes, gemstones, weapons, rings, boots, even a prismatic shard if you're really lucky. I never skip out on a chest because you never know what you're gonna get. Now let's talk about the tool of the trade, rods. By default, you'll start out with the bamboo pole. This has no special properties, it is simply your vessel with which to catch the fish. A fun thing about rods though is that they can be freely bought if you lose one. The second rod is the training rod. It's not an upgrade, rather it's there to help anyone struggling with the fishing minigame. It only costs 25 gold, it's available right from the start, and as I said before, it sets the fishing bar size to level 5. However, any fish caught from it can only ever be normal quality. The training rod can only catch fish with a difficulty of 50 and under. Funnily enough, this rule does not apply to legendary fish. You can still catch them with the training rod. One thing that separates the fishing rod from other tools is that you don't upgrade it at the blacksmith. Instead, once you hit a certain level threshold, you'll be able to buy a better rod at Willie's shop. After getting level 2, you can buy the fiberglass rod for 1,800 gold. You can now use bait. There are 4 different types of bait in the game. Regular bait, 5 can be crafted with 1 bug meat, or it can be bought in Willie's shop for 5 gold. This halves the time it takes for fish to bite and decreases the chance of catching trash. Magnets, which are craftable at level 9, 3 per 1 iron bar, or it can be bought for 1,000 gold. It has all of the properties of regular bait, but also increases the chance of getting a treasure chest by 15%, which adds on to the original 15%, to get a total of a 30% chance to catch a treasure chest. And you may notice that the description says fish aren't crazy about the taste. This means nothing. They're a direct upgrade to regular bait. Wild bait, unlocked from Linus's 4-heart cutscene. Yes, that one. It's crafted with 10 fiber, 5 slime, and 5 bug meat, making 5 wild bait. These lower the bite time even further by 62.5%. It also gives you a 25% chance to catch 2 fish at once, and that chance increases with higher luck. This is the only bait that cannot be bought. Finally, short little 1.5 update spoiler here. Magic bait, unlocked in the Walnut Room on Ginger Island for 20 gems. 5 can be crafted with radioactive ore and 3 bug meat, or it can be bought for 5 gems each. It has the same effect as regular bait and can catch any fish in an area, regardless of season, weather, or time of day. Note that the fish still needs to be able to spawn in that type of water. You can't catch freshwater fish in the ocean. Then, at level 6 fishing, you can buy the iridium rod for 7,500 gold. As well as having bait from the previous rod, it can now also have tackle. Tackle can provide a wide variety of useful effects, a lot being good in specific situations. So let's go over all of them. The spinner, unlocked at level 6, reduces the maximum bite time by 3.75 seconds. The trap bobber, also unlocked at level 6, makes the catch meter decrease 33% slower than it normally would. Lead bobber, level 6, makes your bar not bounce if it drops to the bottom. The treasure hunter, level 7, increases the chance for a chest by 5%, and the catch bar won't deplete while you're on the chest. The cork bobber, level 7, makes the bar 24 pixels bigger, equivalent to 3 level ups. The dressed spinner, level 8, reduces the maximum bite time by 7.5 seconds. The barbed hook, level 8, makes the bar cling to the fish, meaning it'll slowly move in the direction of the fish while the fish is in the bar, trying to center it within the bar. The quality bobber, unlocked after the Juicy Bugs Wanted special order, raises the quality of all fish caught by 1 stage. This is the only way to get iridium fish outside of a perfect catch. And last, the curiosity lure randomly dropped from mummies or crates increases the chance to catch rarer fish and decreases the chance of trash. Moving on from rods, there's one tool that's adjacent, if a little less useful than the rods. Crab pots. You can place these down in any body of water, fill them with bait, and overnight you'll either get a crab pot fish or trash. They're not the most useful thing in the game, but it is a sort of passive income. There are 2 different sets of fish you can catch, freshwater and saltwater. Placing a crab pot in any freshwater will always yield the same fish, and putting it in any saltwater, again, will produce all of the same fish. This can also be used as a way to not play the fishing minigame to get your fishing level up, because you do get 5 fishing experience every time you empty a crab pot, even if it's trash. And if you don't want to use the crafting recipe, they're also sold in Willie's shop for 1,500 gold, and they're unlocked at level 3. Finally, I'd like to talk about fish ponds. These are a type of building that you can have Robin build on your farm. These essentially farmify fish. You put a fish in and they'll automatically populate, yes, even if there's just 1, up to 10. Every few fish, they'll ask you for a specific item to unlock their population limit, usually something related to the fish. We'd feel more at home with a pickles. And I don't even know what sturgeon want diamonds for, but sure, who cares? Each fish will make roe, the value of which is always the sale price of the fish divided by 2, plus 30. So the more expensive the fish, the more valuable the roe. The lava eel and the ice pit being the 2 most valuable roes. Most fish also have a chance to give you a few items that aren't roe, but most of the time the chances are so low that it's not something to be depended on. Oh, also as a final note, legendary fish cannot be used in fish ponds, so don't even think about it. Alright, now for the time we've all been waiting for. The fish. This is why this video took so long. Do y'all know how many fish are in this game? Too many. More than there are crops. Anyway, here is our first chart. It is for all of the spring fish. For the most part, these fish aren't exclusively available in spring, but they are locked to a couple of seasons. So going over the chart from left to right, on the left we have the fish and their name. We have their sale price. This is at normal quality with no profession buffs at all. The conditions you catch them in, if there needs to be a specific weather pattern, it'll be shown on the left, and then it'll have the location and then the time. Then the amount of experience you earn from catching it. Note that getting a perfect catch multiplies that number by 2.4. The quality of the fish, however, does not affect it. Then I have the level. I put level up there because it's the only word that kind of makes sense that could fit in that spot. This is the difficulty of the fish. Each fish has a pattern. For example, dart means it'll dart around very quickly and take a pause in between each dart. Sinker means it'll only dart upwards, and then it'll slowly float back down. Smooth means it won't dart around, it still can move quite quickly though. Although it's not on this list, floater is the opposite of sinker. It'll dart downwards and then float back up. And mixed means it can do any of the previous patterns. It'll change every few seconds or so. Then the number next to that is basically how quickly it executes that pattern. For example, a 30 dart fish won't dart as often or as far or as fast, whereas maybe a 100 dart fish will be very difficult to pin down. Of course, the difficulty number isn't the only thing you're looking at when it comes to straight up difficulty. Some patterns are outright harder than others. Dart is going to be harder than either sinker or floater because it can move in both directions unpredictably. All things to consider. Then in this last section, I have interesting items that you can get from a fish pond if you have that fish in there. It's very empty on this screen, but trust me, we'll get some more interesting ones later. The legendary fish for each season will always be at the bottom of every page. Obviously, it's worth a lot more, it's a lot harder, gives a lot more experience, everything. There's a couple of conditions missing from the legendary fish simply because I couldn't fit them in. For the legend, you do need to be level 10 to hook it. It needs to be caught in a fishing zone of 5, which means it needs to be 5 tiles away from any land. Oftentimes, the game will give you a specific spot to catch the fish that's intended, but it can be in any fishing zone of 5. Not much else to say about this page. In general, the spring fish are easier, they sell for less money, with the exception of the catfish, which is very difficult and also only available in the rain. You might be saying, however, this isn't all of the fish that can be caught in spring, and you would be right. I have a separate table for fish that can be caught in any season. These are year-round fish. There is truly nothing much special about any of these. The carp is the easiest fish to catch in the entire game, so there's that. These also tend to be the cheapest of all fish, with the exception of the largemouth bass, selling for 100 gold. I also want to point out that you see R plus L on chub. That means river and lake. Basically, it means that you can catch this thing in any freshwater, outside of like the special ponds like in the Secret Woods. Now, those two tables were easy. Moving on to the summer fish, you can see why this took so long. There's so many fish. As you can see, our fish pond area is a little bit more colorful this time, with rainbow trout being a standout, giving you both rainbow shells and prismatic shards, only 0.1% of the time. Super cucumbers also being pretty cool and being the first of the fish that we've gone over that changed the color of your pond. I want to talk about the Dorado really quick. It ends up being one of the last fish that a lot of people catch, mainly for the fact that it's not only just caught in the river, it's only caught in the forest river. It is the only fish in the entire game, other than, you know, a legendary fish that we'll talk about later, that is only caught in the forest river and not in the town river. Moving down, we have the octopus, which is the hardest to catch fish in the entire game that isn't legendary. And then down to the legendary fish, the crimson fish. It only requires level 5 fishing, and it does need to be caught over on the docks near the tide pools. That's just about the only requirement it has. Oh, and also for sturgeon, you'll see caviar on its fish pond area. That's because whenever you put its roe into a preserves jar, you will get caviar instead of aged roe, and it does actually have one specific use. You'll probably find it while playing through the game. Moving on to fall, one less fish than summer. I almost like to think of fall as a mix of spring and summer fish because it has so many similarities with both of those seasons. The catfish comes back if you were too low of a level to be able to catch it mechanically back in spring. There's quite a few rain-locked fish, so make sure you pay attention to that if you're trying to complete all the fish caught. I also want to mention the sea cucumber. It's the yellow one. I just titled it Cuke because nothing else would really fit. It is used in a very good food recipe, the Lucky Lunch. This increases your luck stat by 3 and can be really good for going through the mines or really doing almost anything in the game. Midnight carp is another often missed fish because it can only be caught after 10 p.m., which is one of the latest times any fish starts to be available in the entire game. And it's only caught in the lake, which is a not very popular fishing spot. Lastly, the angler only requires level 3 fishing, is the easiest of all of the legendary fish to catch at only 85 difficulty. It does, however, need to specifically be caught in the northernmost spot of the town river. And since the town has hardly any fishing zones of 5, there is no fishing zone requirement here. It just needs to be in the right spot of the river. And finally, winter fish. There are only 3 fish here that you haven't seen before. The perch, which is pretty easy to find. It can be caught in the river or the lake at any time. It's also a very easy fish. On the other end, we have the squid, which can only be caught in the ocean after 6 p.m. and is pretty difficult, but if you put it into a fish pond, it can give you squid ink, which is useful for a couple of cooking recipes. I also want to give special attention to the red snapper. It has the rain requirement. You might know that it does not naturally rain in winter at all, so the only way to ever catch the red snapper in winter is to use a rain totem. And then moving on to the legendary fish, we have the glacier fish. It requires level 6 fishing to catch, and it requires that you stand on one specific tile. This tile at the bottom of the arrow tip island at the bottom of the forest river. And even after that, it does still require that you fish in a fishing zone of 5. If you meet all of those constraints, it is the most likely to be hooked legendary fish with a 50% chance of getting hooked. And did you think we were done? We have one more table of fish, the special fish table. All of these fish, for the most part, can be caught in any season, but it needs to be in a very specific area. You'll also notice that every single fish has unique items that you can get if it's put in a fish pond. This is the main reason that I included it on the table. So to start, you have the first 4 fish all caught in the mines. The lava eel once again changing the color of your fish pond and giving you the most expensive roe, as well as giving you many useful items out of its fish pond. Also notable that the stonefish, ice pip, and lava eel give you their respective geodes from the mines. The sandfish and scorpion carp are both caught in the desert. I don't know why they're not catchable after 8 p.m., but they're not. And I will still hold that the scorpion carp is the hardest fish to catch in the entire game because it has the highest difficulty level with the dart pattern, which I personally find to be the hardest. The wood skip's pretty normal, it's found in the secret woods pond. Void salmon are only caught in the witch's swamp, and before we move on, I also want to talk about the witch's swamp a little bit more. You have the mission where you need to bring void mayonnaise to the henchman to get to the magic ink and all that, we all know it. You can just straight up fish out void mayonnaise from the witch's swamp. This can only be done while you're taking on that mission, so this could save you a bit of time. Slime jacks found in the mutant bug lair. They also change your fish pond color, as do the void salmon, I forgot to mention. Lionfish, blue discus, and stingrays were all added in the 1.5 update, and they're all found on Ginger Island. Lionfish in the ocean, blue discus in any freshwater, and stingrays specifically in Pirate's Cove. They all also have crazy items that can be found in fish ponds. The stingrays being the most egregious, giving you some of the most valuable items in the entire game. And the lionfish literally gives you the most valuable item. The tiger slime egg sells for 8,000 gold. Next we have the 3 night market fish. Yes, I know that these should technically be in winter, but they couldn't fit, so here they are. These are caught during the night market on the 15th to the 17th of winter. You take the submarine down to the bottom of the ocean and you catch them there. Fun fact, you can actually catch them whenever you want if you have magic bait. All you need to do is fish in this area with it. Doesn't matter when, doesn't matter what season, you can catch them there. It's pretty neat. There's quite a few valuable items you can get from their ponds, the pearl of course being a universally loved item. Farm warp totems are always helpful, and the treasure chests you can get from spookfish are worth 5,000 gold, so, you know, that's pretty good. I would be amiss if I didn't mention that the blobfish can be tailored into a blobfish mask. Finally, we have the last of our legendary fish, the mutant carp. It is only caught in the sewers. There's really no requirements to catching it. As long as you can catch an 80 difficulty dartfish, you're good. Okay, so there's a few more fish. Wow, who to get more fish? Crazy. There's the crab pot fish. I'm not gonna make a whole table for these because they're a lot simpler than all of the others. These fish come in 2 sections, one for ocean fish, one for freshwater fish. We'll do the freshwater fish first because they're simple. They're all very cheap. You have the crayfish, snail, and periwinkle. Crayfish sells for 75 gold, snail 65, and periwinkle 20 whopping gold. When put into a fish pond, they all either give you trash or they can give you mixed seeds or a mountain warp totem. There's a bit more to catch in the ocean. You can get lobsters, clams, crabs, cockles, mussels, shrimp, and oyster. It's important to note that while clams, cockles, mussels, and oysters can all wash up on the beach and be foraged, they won't count towards your fishing list. They have to be caught in a crab pot. Lobsters and crabs are the most notable of all of them just because they're worth a bit of money. Lobsters 120 and crabs 100. The rest can just be turned into sashimi for selling. When put into a fish pond, well, first of all, clams are the only thing identified as a fish in the entire game that cannot be put into a fish pond. Don't ask why. The rest will all either give you trash, coral, sea urchins, a beach warp totem, or a nautilus shell. Although crabs are a bit of a special case, they don't give you pearls in their fish pond. However, if you get a fish pond with 10 crabs and go talk to Willy, he'll give you a pearl. So that's kind of neat. And that should be every single fish. Oh my god. So we can finally move on to the level up rewards of the fishing skill. At level 1, your casting distance is simply increased by 1 tile. At level 2, you get the bait recipe, and the fiberglass rod and bait are unlocked in Willy's fish shop. At level 3, you unlock crab pots, which we've gone over extensively, and the cooking recipe for the dish of the sea, which gives you the second best fishing buff with +3. At level 4, you unlock the recycling machine. You can put items that are considered trash into this to make a different useful item, except for Joja Cola. And here's a short chart sourced from the wiki that tells you what items you can get from which trash. And once again, your casting distance is increased by 1 tile. At level 5, we have our first choice of professions with the fisher profession. Fishes are worth 25% more when sold. Or the trapper profession. Resources required to craft crab pots are reduced. For reference, that changes the ingredients from 3 iron bars and 40 wood to 2 copper bars and 25 wood. So we're obviously heading in the fishing path and the crab pot path. Honestly, choose whichever mechanic you like more. I know a lot of people really hate the fishing minigame. In that case, crab pots. It's an easy level 10 over time. However, if you take the fishing path, both of the level 10 professions are very useful. One helping you with making money and the other helping you with completing the museum. So it's really strong. Can't deny that. At level 6, we unlock the iridium rod in Willy's shop, which means we start unlocking tackle as well. You get the crafting recipes for the spinner and the trap bobber, and in Willy's shop, you get the lead bobber, spinner, and trap bobber. At level 7, we have more tackle, the cork bobber and treasure hunter recipes, and they're also unlocked in Willy's shop. At level 8, we get the worm bin crafting recipe, which is perhaps one of the most hilariously not worth it items in the entire game. It has a super expensive recipe and it just gives you 2 to 5 bait every day. You could just outright buy the bait for cheaper. For reference, I just want to go over this really quick. If you buy all of the materials that it takes to make a worm bin, it'll take 267 days for the bait to pay off the price that you spent on the worm bin. It's almost funny how bad it is. I use it for aesthetics more than anything else. You also unlock the barbed hook and dressed spinner recipes, which are also unlocked in Willy's shop, and your casting distance is once again increased by 1 tile. At level 9, you unlock the seafoam pudding cook recipe, which gives you the best fishing buff in the game at +4. You unlock the magnet bait crafting recipe, and it's also unlocked in Willy's shop. Now for our level 10 professions. If you chose the Fisher path, you'll have Angler, fish are worth 50% more when sold, or Pirate, chance to find treasure doubled. Now, one thing I want to go over here is that the Angler profession overwrites the Fisher profession. It's just another 25% boost. The Pirate profession, on the other hand, does not overwrite the 25% boost you already have. Basically, in my eyes, if you haven't completed the museum, go for the Pirate profession. It is so useful for that. Otherwise, more money is always great. This is also a situation where you can just stockpile a ton of fish, swap over to the Angler profession for one day, sell it all, and swap back if you really want to. Over on the Trapper section, we have Mariner, which makes crab pots no longer produce junk, and Lure Master, which makes crab pots not require bait. If you're a crab pot person, both of these are very valuable. However, Mariner will give you the better gold per day increase if that's what you're looking for. Bait is ultimately extremely cheap and doesn't affect your profit that much. Or, you know, maybe you're lazy and you want to use Lure Master. That's okay too. These two are pretty balanced in my opinion. Although overall, if you want to go with efficiency, you definitely want to take the Fisher route. And that ought to do it. One of the more controversial seals in the game that I personally love. Once again, if I have missed anything, please let me know. And I think real quick as a side note, there's a bunch of items that you can get from fishing in very specific places, all of which I covered in this video here. So if you're interested in that, give it a look. Otherwise, thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.